the Department for Work and Pensions, DWP, has dropped a bombshell that demands immediate scrutiny. With a sweeping pension reform set to take effect on February 24, 2025, the government has effectively placed millions of pensioners at risk, while pushing through changes that are both unnecessary and deeply unfair. The message is clear: the elderly, many of whom have spent decades contributing to a system that now seems to be rigged against them, are being left to fend for themselves. If the government's intent was to ensure financial stability, it has utterly failed, instead crafting a system that will plunge more retirees into financial hardship. At the heart of this impending disaster is a series of calculated moves that will only worsen the inequality already rife in society. The adjustments to the state pension rates are being sold as necessary for long-term sustainability, but the reality is much darker. For those who have contributed the required 35 years of national insurance contributions, they might see a modest increase of £8.30 per week, hardly a lifeline. The real concern, however, is for those with fewer than 35 years of contributions, particularly those with less than 25 years, who will see a sharp reduction in their benefits. This system punishes those who have faced interrupted careers due to caring responsibilities, health issues, or other unavoidable circumstances. The government's dismissal of this reality, along with its emphasis on equitable outcomes, is nothing more than a smokescreen for the broader injustice that will unfold. The changes to pension credit are equally troubling. Pension credit is supposed to be a safety net for those who fall below the poverty line, yet the new criteria will exclude many vulnerable pensioners who depend on it to survive. By lowering the savings threshold from £10,000 to £8,000, the DWP is effectively punishing those who have managed to save a modest amount for their retirement. If you've set aside a few £1,000s to cover unexpected expenses or safeguard your future, expect to see a reduction in your pension credit entitlement. The government has justified this by claiming it will make the system fairer, but the reality is it will only leave pensioners more exposed. Instead of helping those who have planned for their futures, these changes will force many into poverty. Perhaps the most egregious aspect of this overhaul is the transformation of the winter fuel payment. A benefit designed to protect pensioners from the financial burden of heating their homes in the winter, it has long been a lifeline for those on fixed incomes. Now, under the new regime, only those receiving pension credit will qualify for the winter fuel payment. This is a direct attack on the middle and lower middle classes, the pensioners who do not qualify for pension credit but still struggle to make ends meet. By cutting this benefit for so many, the government is condemning many elderly individuals to suffer from the cold, further exacerbating the risk of fuel poverty. The argument that the payment should be targeted only at those most in need is not only heartless but entirely disingenuous. The government's actions betray a profound lack of empathy for pensioners who are not wealthy enough to live comfortably, but still not poor enough to qualify for this essential support. The rationale behind these reforms is shaky at best. The DWP claims that these changes are necessary for the long-term sustainability of the pension system. Yet, no real evidence has been presented that demonstrates the necessity of such drastic measures. If anything, this overhaul seems more like a convenient excuse to offload responsibility onto the elderly, while shifting focus away from the real issues that plague the system, such as the rising cost of living, stagnant wages, and an economy that increasingly fails to deliver for working people. The government's eagerness to push through these cuts, with a timeline so short that pensioners have little time to respond, is the height of political negligence. These reforms are a direct consequence of a government that continues to prioritize fiscal conservatism over social welfare. They are the product of an ideology that views the elderly as burdens rather than contributors to society, as people whose needs can be sacrificed for the sake of a theoretical future stability. But this is not a future that pensioners will benefit from. It is a future in which they will be left to fend for themselves. This is not just a financial crisis. It is a moral one. The government has decided that the elderly, who have paid their dues throughout their lives, should now pay the price for political mismanagement and economic instability. The changes to the state pension, pension credit, and winter fuel payment are a clear signal. The government does not care about the elderly. It has decided that their security can be compromised for the sake of short-term savings, while pushing responsibility for their well-being onto those who already have the least. Let's be clear. These changes are neither necessary nor justified. They are politically motivated cuts that will deepen inequality and thrust vulnerable people into financial precarity. For pensioners who have worked hard all their lives, the government's message is simple: you've paid enough, now fend for yourself. The time for complacency has passed. We must stand up, demand better for the elderly, and hold the government accountable for these short-sighted and cruel policies.